This week, Congress continues its investigation, but Congress has not heard from the man you are about to meet. Mike Williams was one of the last crew members to escape the inferno. He says the destruction of the Deepwater Horizon had been building for weeks in a series of mishaps. The night of the disaster, he was in his workshop when he heard the rig's engines suddenly run wild.
I hear the engines revving. The lights are glowing. I'm hearing the alarms. I mean, they're at a constant state now. It's just beep, 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 beep. It doesn't stop. But even that's starting to get drowned out by the sound of the engine increasing in speed.
This is the Deepwater Horizon in the hours before its destruction, the night of April 20th. Ironically, the end was coming only months after the rig's greatest achievement. Mike Williams was the chief electronics technician in charge of the rig's computers and electrical systems, and 7 months before, he'd helped the crew drill the deepest oil well in history, 35,000 feet. Williams worked for the owner, Transocean, the largest offshore drilling company. Like its sister rigs, the Deepwater Horizon cost $350 million, rose 378 feet from bottom to top, both advanced and safe. None of her 126 crew had been seriously injured in 7 years. Deepwater Horizon was in 5,000 feet of water and would drill another 13,000 feet, a total of 3.5 miles. The oil and gas down there are under enormous pressure, and the key to keeping that pressure under control is this fluid that drillers call mud. Mud is a man-made drilling fluid that's pumped down the well and back up the sides in continuous circulation. The sheer weight of this fluid keeps the oil and gas down and the well under control. This job was costing BP $1 million a day. But Williams says there was trouble from the start. Getting to the oil was taking too long.
How long did you expect it to take?
We were told 21 days.
How long did it actually take?
We were at 6 weeks.
With the schedule slipping, Williams says a BP manager ordered a faster pace.
And he requested to the driller, hey, let's bump it up, let's bump it up. And what he was talking about there is he's bumping up the rate of penetration, how fast the drill bit is going down.
Williams says going faster caused the bottom of the well to split open, swallowing tools and the drilling fluid called mud.
We actually got stuck. And we got stuck so bad that we had to send tools down into the drill pipe and sever the pipe.
That well was abandoned. Deepwater Horizon had to drill a new route to the oil. It cost BP more than 2 weeks and millions of dollars.
There was pressure on the crew after this happened?
There's always pressure, but yes, the pressure was increased.
But the trouble was just beginning. When drilling resumed, Williams says there was an accident on the rig that has not been reported before. He says 4 weeks before the explosion, the rig's most vital piece of safety equipment was damaged. Down near the seabed is the blowout preventer, or BOP. It's used to seal the well shut in order to test the pressure and integrity of the well, and in case of a blowout, it's the crew's only hope. A key component is a rubber gasket at the top called an annular, which can close tightly around the drill pipe. Williams says that during a test they closed the gasket, but while it was shut tight, a crewman on deck accidentally nudged a joystick, applying hundreds of thousands of pounds of force and moving 15 feet of drill pipe through the closed blowout preventer. Later, a man monitoring drilling fluid rising to the top made a troubling find.
He discovered chunks of rubber in the drilling fluid. He thought it was important enough to gather this double handful of chunks of rubber and bring them into the driller shack. I recall asking the supervisor if this was out of the ordinary. It's no big deal. And I thought, how can it be not a big deal? There's chunks of our seal is now missing.
In the hours before the disaster, Deepwater Horizon's work was nearly done. All that was left was to seal the well closed. The oil would be pumped out by another rig later. Williams says that during a safety meeting, the manager for the rig owner, Transocean, was explaining how they were going to close the well when the manager from BP interrupted.
I had the BP company man sitting directly beside me, and he he literally perked up and said, well, my process is different, and I think we're going to do it this way. And they kind of lined out the way he thought it should go that day. So there was sort of a chest-bumping kind of deal. The communication seemed to really break down as to who was ultimately in charge.
The day of the accident, BP flew several managers to the Deepwater Horizon for a ceremony to congratulate the crew for 7 years without an injury. While they were there, a surge of explosive gas came flying up the well from 3 miles below. The rig's diesel engines, which power its electric generators, sucked in the gas and began to run wild. William's survival may be critical to the investigation. We took his story to Dr. Bob B., a professor of engineering at the University of California, Berkeley. Last week, the White House asked B. to help analyze the Deepwater Horizon accident.
The morning of the disaster, according to Williams, there was an argument in front of all of the men on the shift between the Transocean manager and the BP manager. Do you know what that argument was about?
Yes.
What was it?
Who's boss?
In finishing the well, the plan was to have a subcontractor, Halliburton, place 3 concrete plugs, like corks, in the column. The Transocean manager wanted to do this with the column full of heavy drilling fluid, what drillers call mud, to keep the pressure down below contained. But the BP manager wanted to begin to remove the mud before the last plug was set. That would reduce the pressure controlling the well before the plugs were finished.
Why would BP want to do that?
It expedites the subsequent steps.
It's a matter of going faster.
Faster, sure.
Who won the argument?
BP.
If the mud had been left in the column, would there have been a blowout?
It doesn't look like it.
To do it BP's way, they had to be absolutely certain that the first 2 plugs were keeping the pressure down. That life or death test was done using the blowout preventer, which had the damaged gasket. Investigators have also found that the BOP had a hydraulic leak and a weak battery.
Weeks before the disaster, they know that they are drilling into a very dangerous formation. The formation has told them that.
That's correct.
And has cost them millions of dollars.
That's correct.
And they know the BOP is broken.
Correct.
Broken in a number of ways.
Correct.
What is the appropriate thing to do at that point?
As the drilling fluid was removed, relieving the downward pressure, the plugs failed. The blowout preventer didn't work, and 11 men were incinerated. 115 crew members survived. 2 days later, the Deepwater Horizon sank to the bottom. This was just the latest disaster for a company that is the largest oil producer in the United States. BP, once known as British Petroleum, was found willfully negligent in a 2005 Texas refinery explosion that killed 15 of its workers.
When BP's chief executive officer, Tony Hayward, says that this is Transocean's accident, what do you say?
I get sick. This kind of division in the industry is a killer. The industry is comprised of many organizations, and they all share the responsibility for successful operations.
There are plenty of accusations to go around that BP pressed for speed, Halliburton's cement plugs failed, and Transocean damaged the blowout preventer. Through all the red flags, they pressed ahead. It was, after all, the Deepwater Horizon, the world record holder, celebrated as among the safest in the fleet.
Men lost their lives. I don't know how else to say it. All the things that they told us could never happen, happened.